Speaking of the greatest band of all time, we often have different views. Some might say Coldplay, Backstreet Boys, Queen. Well, they're all great, but we always missed someone out. That's no other than the Beatles. So, who are the Beatles? And what have they done throughout their active years? Most importantly, why are they considered as the greatest band of all time? But before I walk you through everything about them, let me introduce myself in the first place. I'm Thomas, 21 this year, and I am a first year physics student. Let me first briefly introduce the Beatles to you. So, who are they? In 1957, the Beatles debuted in Liverpool, England, under the name the Quarrymen. They are not recording artists where they started. They are actually a band that played for a few years in clubs of Liverpool and also Hamburg, Germany. Then, in 1960, they changed their name to the Silver Beatles in May that year, and subsequently settled on the name The Beatles in August the same year. Originally, they consist of on and off many members. Then, they settled to only 4 in their lineup, which were John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. At this point, I would like to ask you, have you heard of the song Hey Jude? Do you know that it was the Beatles that wrote and sang it? But not by some other musician. To be honest, a few years back, I didn't even know that this song was written by them. Well, this song is just the tip of the iceberg of their discography. They actually started out as a skiffle band, then in their later years they embraced rock and roll. But that was not the only thing they do. They explored a wide variety of music. To name a few, psychedelic rock, blues, country, Indian music, rock ballad, metal. I can go on and on. There were so many. One of the members, Paul McCartney, once said that the Beatles love all music. As we all know, all artists have their own fans. Many artists experience fan frenzy. Taken for example, many millennials fantasize K-pop groups so much that they worship them as if they were some kind of divine being. Did the Beatles experience the same thing? Yes, they did. Throughout their active years, they experienced what was known as the Beatlemania. In fact, the Beatlemania was the very first fan frenzy which created a huge impact in history. The era spanned from 1960 to 1967 and was propelled by the song Please Please Me, From Me to You, and She Loves You. It attracted both boys and girls to go crazy over them. Boys would go for their mop-top haircuts, while girls would scream their lungs out. It was until the extent that the police had to use high-pressure water hoses to hold back the fans and escort the Beatles. Well, before I proceed, let me tell you an interesting experience I had about a few months ago. I was browsing around in Gurney Plaza, popular bookstore, and something caught my attention. It was those vinyl records that interest me. I went to them and take a look. To my surprise, I found a few Beatles albums. Well, I never thought that they would be produced anymore. This is just one of the legacy the Beatles left. There are many more. Most prominently, they helped fighting racial segregation in the US. They once refused to play at a concert because the crowd was segregated according to races. On the other hand, many artists like Katy Perry and Ed Sheeran did music videos to promote their music. But no one really thought who was the first to do this. It was actually the Beatles. The Beatles were the very first band and the very first artist to record music videos in the music industry, and also the first band to be marketed through television. They pioneered the world tour and stadium concerts. They are the best-selling band in history, which sold more than 800 million physical and digital albums as of 2013. Also, they were the ones that hold the most number one hits on the Billboard Hot 100 songs, which they hold a record of 20 songs. There are many more and I could go on, but there's one more worth to mention. The Beatles are the most significant and influential rock music artists of the last 50 years, according to the Rolling Stone magazine. Although being the best in the world, they seem to fade out of the society in the recent years. Some millennials didn't even know they existed. I once communicated with a few men in their 60s and 70s. The moment I mentioned about the Beatles, they were very surprised. They told me it's hard to find one that listened to the Beatles nowadays. We cannot deny the fact that their music and legacy influenced almost every artist around the world. Their hard work should be recognized and be taken as an advice for not only amateur musicians or grassroots musicians, but everyone in the world. What the Beatles taught us is that achievements don't come easy. I hope you are getting a lot of information from this video, and I sincerely hope that my facts are correct. Thank you for listening.